Israel, when she was released, lied about her conditions and said Hamas actually broke her arm. She openly stated that the Israeli government was lying about what had taken place, that her biggest fear when she was held captive was actually Israeli that killed one of the hostages that she was with. On the planet since the Rwandan genocide. Okay? What the f are you talking about? There has never been a moment where I have supported the #1 baby killer since the Rwandan genocide, which is Israel. What the f are you saying? Wake up, man. Wake up. Jesus Christ. Holy shit. I'm talking about Hamas parading around dead babies. I'm so awake. I'm just not woke. Hamas parading around dead babies is also a ridiculous. They did a funeral procession. That's what they did. That's what you're calling parading dead children. And they said that it was Israel that killed those children. Okay? And guess what? The Bibas family also does not appreciate that Benjamin Netanyahu is parading the Bibas family, the children that were slain, okay, without giving the Bibas family the actual autopsy report. What is more likely, that this family actually was slaughtered privately and quietly in the hands of Hamas, or Israel accidentally killed them as they have done and is lying about it? We don't know. We don't have evidence. The only evidence, quote unquote, that we have is the nation state that has literally done a genocide, also simultaneously has routinely lied about the hostages that they only after numerous lawsuits have they had to reveal the true autopsy reports in the past for other Israeli hostages. Okay? I mean, strangled and their skulls crushed. Yeah. Benjamin Netanyahu literally, instead of giving the autopsy report to the family, turned around and paraded the autopsy report, which I doubt the veracity of at this stage, 100%. Okay? The Israeli government has used AI imagery to, talk about the children that died. Okay? And you're over here talking about how, I know for a fact Hamas actually strangled them. Yeah, here it is. The Bibas family has threatened to sue the Israeli government for exploiting the deaths of their family members for propaganda purposes, as layers of evidence support claims an Israeli airstrike killed them. And you're over here using dead children once again, this time dead Israeli children, which by your estimation, I suspect, has a higher value than dead Palestinian children. After all, you literally do not even recognize that Israel has killed more children in any global conflict since the Rwandan genocide, okay? And that is not even a thing in your mind. That doesn't even matter in your mind. It's just pure propaganda. That's it. Here it is. Bibas family tells Netanyahu to shut up as he details the murders of Shiri, Ariel, and Kfir. Publishing unapproved information is abuse for its own sake, says Ofri Bibas. Hours after Netanyahu publicly gives graphic details for the second time, despite this family's request. Israel kills aid workers, journalists, teachers, nurses, doctors, tortures doctors. Even if you don't care about them because they're Palestinian, Israel still does that. On top of all of that, Israel kills its own hostages, sometimes directly by shooting them in the back as they're waving a white flag because they thought that they were Palestinian. They thought that they were Palestinian civilians. Okay? Israel also blows up buildings where hostages are without any care for their well-being. This, if you were in any way, shape, or form remotely interested in learning about the truth, okay, or even a little bit knowledgeable, if you read any Israeli media in general, okay, you would know, bro, stop, you're speaking bullshit. Okay, dude, I know it feels bad. I know, I get it. I get it feels bad for you, okay? It feels bad to hear the truth after you have been conditioned to believe something else. Here's the Bibas family from 3 days ago. We appeal to a number of authorities, including the Prime Minister's office and the information system, to make it clear that the decision to publish any details about the gruesome murders is solely the decision of the family, and no pressure should be put on it to exploit the murder for alleged public purposes. Our request is also addressed to the entire public. Please do not participate or share in the race to publish difficult, offensive, and private details. Even in these painful times, the Bibas family and an entire nation are mourning the murder of their family members. And while the family is busy preparing for the funeral and burial of their deceased loved ones, and before the report from the Institute of Forensic Medicine was received, the family surprisingly continues to receive repeated requests from domestic political parties, media parties, and private parties for needs that are assumed to be explanatory, or with the aim of satisfying the public voyeurism and mainly publishing the details of the murders. All this despite the family's request to avoid harming her privacy and dignity. If you knew anything about this process and the conditions that these hostages were put through, Israeli hostages were put through, even Noah Argamani recently testified. Noah Argamani is by no means pro-Hamas, okay? Or by no means pro-Palestinian. She is an Israeli occupying force soldier who was captured by the militant resistance groups on October 7. She was held captive. Israel propagandized her all the time. Israel, when she was released, lied about her conditions and said Hamas actually broke her arm. She openly stated that the Israeli government was lying about what had taken place, that her biggest fear when she was held captive was actually Israeli that killed one of the hostages that she was with. You would know that if you just got your news from any outlet that actually cares about the truth. But you don't care about the truth, okay? You just care about psychopathic, drama-loving weirdo. I know Noah Argamani was at Nova, not active military. Wait, no, she is. No, she was. I thought she was IDF as well, regardless of being at Nova. She was captured at Nova. Now, I don't think this family thinks an Israeli airstrike killed the children, at least not based on this statement alone. No. The family, I don't know what the family's opinion is beyond what they have told so far. And what they've told is they do not have access to the forensic investigation. Okay? That's number one. Number two, families have actually sued the Israeli government. Families of slain IDF hostages, okay, have successfully sued the Israeli government since October 7 because the Israeli government has lied about how these hostages have died. Okay? I need you to understand this. Please, if your immediate family members are killed, you would probably care about the truth more than doing propaganda. Okay? That is what these victims want. And that is the most understandable demand of all time. It's crazy. Yeah, speaking of Noah survivors, they also sued the Israeli government for deliberately putting them in harm's way as well, allowing there to be a rave next to a concentration camp when all evidence suggested that that concentration camp was slated to break out at any given moment. And they refused to listen to any prior warning from the Egyptian government and prior warnings from Unit 8200, which is the surveillance unit at the Gaza envelope that surveils Palestinian activity. But of course, you don't care about any of this stuff, but it's fine. I will sometimes respond to trolls before you chatters get mad. Okay? Before chatters get mad and say, Hasan, why are you responding to trolls? Because this is informational. Okay? This is a moment for a lot of people to learn the truth. It's not going to be the troll himself that actually goes, you know what happens? Because they're not in here. They're not in here to actually understand what truly is happening. They're in here to just shit stir. Okay? But it's a good moment for education. French MEP barred from Israel says Biba's family wasn't murdered, justifies Hamas attack. The Bibas family itself asked the Israeli authorities to stop commenting on the circumstances of the death of their loved ones, she said, arguing that they have not received official or any clear information on the reports communicated by the Israeli army. This is a twisting of the Bibas family's comments. The family has acknowledged that the autopsy shows that Shiri, Ariel, Kfir Bibas were murdered and has asked that no more details be given to the media for privacy reasons. In expressing anger that more explicit details of the deaths have leaked, they have noted that they have not yet been given the full details themselves. At no point have they questioned the forensic experts' assertions that the three were murdered by their guards. Okay, so yeah, the Bibas family itself also believed that that their family members were murdered by the guards. Okay, this still doesn't change anything in terms of having an independent forensic expert actually literally look at these autopsy reports. If they want justice to be served, and if they actually want to know the truth, they can demand for it. If they don't demand for it, that's fine. Is it likely that this will happen? Probably not. But what is the reason for my assertion that Israel might be wrong about this or might be deliberately misinforming the public about this? Number one, there is a second phase of the ceasefire negotiation that Israel does not want to follow through on, because this phase of the negotiation, the ceasefire, would make the ceasefire permanent, would move in the direction of permanent ceasefire, a permanent cessation of hostilities. Number two, Israel has routinely lied about every detail, every step of the way since October 7, but certainly before October 7 as well. As a matter of fact, it's easier to figure out the times when Israel hasn't lied about an issue. Okay? It always happens in the same exact way. Israel doesn't even talk about many of the death and destruction that they cause until it becomes a newsworthy story in the West, like the World Central Kitchen aid workers. Okay? And their first response is always immediately to lie. Immediately. They get disproven time and time again. Sometimes, if there are actual Israeli citizens that are victims to these lies, they have the capacity to sue the Israeli government, and then the truth is uncovered. The greatest example I can give you is quite literally the the IDF hostage that was killed, whose mother demanded the truth from the Israeli government. The Israeli government said Hamas killed the hostage. Of course they did. They did. They were like, oh no, Hamas killed the hostage. What are you talking about? But the mother said that the asphyxiation was most likely caused by the bombing. And she kept suing the government. And lo and behold, Israel quietly admitted that Israeli occupying force hostage was actually killed because of Israeli bombing campaigns. Other hostages have talked about hostages that have died due to Israeli bombing campaigns. Hostages have talked about how their greatest fear was their own government blowing them up. And we're still having this conversation. We're still having this back and forth. It blows my mind. But this isn't the only reason why I think that the claims being made by the Israeli government might not be true. The other reasons why I think the claims being made by the Israeli government might not be true is because I don't believe that Hamas militants are the most moral people on the planet and are operating on this like unimaginable morality. Although Palestinian emancipation is the moral cause, individual actors are not always going to behave in this most moral fashion. That's not my argument at all. But they do still follow normal logic. Okay? They did not capture Israeli civilians and Israeli occupying force soldiers alike simply to go and kill them quietly. This is why since October 7, I've said over and over again, this is why I've said since October 7 over and over again that there is a reason for why they did this. It doesn't matter if you don't agree with the tactics or not. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay? The reason was obvious. It was leverage. They had demands. They're an entirely captive population that understandably felt like they had no other option but to fight back, to escape the conditions that they were in. They were forced into experiencing by the Israeli state that doesn't see them as human. Okay? And in that process, I kept repeating over and over again, if Hamas or any members of the Palestinian militancy kill any of the hostages, they will tell you. And they did. There was an instance where a Palestinian guard actually engaged in a revenge killing of a hostage. Hamas revealed that information. That did happen. There's also the other part of this process. Hamas has also killed hostages when Israel, during a ceasefire negotiation process, decided to militarily go and extract some hostages. Okay? And in the process, they did. They killed, I think, 4 hostages. They openly revealed this information as well. But not only that, but also, the Bibas family was slain in November of 2023. Okay? November 2023. And when they were killed in the process, and I believe that it was initially not even they weren't captured by the Al-Qassam brigades. I believe that they were captured by some random group. And they had a hard time, obviously under the bombing campaign that was happening, figuring out where every single hostage was and take accountability. Okay? Take an account of where all the hostages are. But As far as it was the Mujahideen movement. Yes, thank you, Murat's butler, that initially took the Bibas family hostage, the Mujahideen Brigade. In November 2023, Hamas revealed that the Bibas family had been slain in an Israeli bombing campaign. They also said that they would voluntarily send the bodies back to Israel. In November 2023, in November 2023, okay, Israel said Hamas was playing politics. Think about that. I feel like that context is never really mentioned in this process. Why didn't they return the bodies? Israel refused. What are you talking about? When people fall for such sloppy propaganda, you know the illiteracy rate is abysmal. So there is a massive onslaught of Israeli propaganda that the Israeli Knesset has spent $250 million on this year. We know that Israel is not shy about lying about the details of things that have happened. So excuse me for being a little critical about the initial statements that come from Israel, especially when they have shown over and over again that they do not actually give a shit about Israeli citizens. Here's another point of Israeli propaganda or the Israeli government lying and then turning around and openly admitting that they did something. The Israeli military directive, the Israeli military has a protocol called the Hannibal Directive. Okay? The Hannibal Directive directs the soldiers to shoot and kill Israeli civilians or Israeli soldiers if they are in the process of being captured by Palestinian militants. Because in the eyes of the Israeli government, those people are better dead than alive. Because when they're alive, their immediate family members are going to create a lot of pressure on the Israeli government. And initially, on October 7, there were Israeli civilians that were in some of these little villages that stated that the Israeli government had actually opened fire on those villages and most likely killed some of the side of the kibbutzim. Well, we don't need to speculate about it any longer because the defense minister, the former defense minister, who was the defense minister during October 7, actually openly admitted to utilizing the Hannibal Directive on October 7, a couple weeks ago. IDF carried out Hannibal Directive, new Sword of Damocles operation on October 7. All means are kosher. A look at the IDF's controversial Hannibal Directive explainer. The Air Force was carrying out the Sword of Damocles operation, a code name only being revealed on Thursday for the first time, to attack many Hamas commanders in their headquarters around 10:30 a.m., October 7, 2023, just as it was carrying out the Hannibal Directive of gunning down anything that moved around the Israel-Gaza border. This is from the Jerusalem Post. This is an outlet that is an ultra-Zionist outlet. The Jerusalem Post is famous for writing articles such as, well, southern Lebanon, more like northern Israel. Just so you understand, this ain't, the woke lords over at Haaretz. This is the fucking Jerusalem Post. The Air Force has been questioned about if the forces it had invested in attacking Hamas commanders deep in Gaza would have been better used to defend the Gaza border and to attack Hamas invaders in Israeli villages. And yes, it was reported at the time that Hamas had offered to hand over remains of the hostage baby and family. Okay, look, this was written about, wait, what? 1/12/2023. Oh, 12 December 1st, 2023. God damn it. Freaking Frenchman. Hamas on Friday said it offered to hand over the bodies of a mother and her two sons, one of them a baby, in talks to extend a now expired truth. Shiri Bibas, her 10-month-old son, Kafir, and his 4-year-old brother, Ariel, along with her father, Yarden, have become emblematic of the October 7 attacks due to the age of the baby, Kafir. Earlier this week, Hamas' armed wing announced that Shiri, Kafir, and Ariel had been killed in an Israeli bombing before the now-lapsed truce went into effect, a claim Israel's military has said it's investigating but is yet to confirm. Combat between Israel and Hamas resumed in the Gaza Strip Friday morning after an agreement could not be reached on the prolonging 7-day pause in fighting. Under the terms of the temporary truce, Hamas had returned scores of Israeli hostages in exchange for the release of more than 200 Palestinian prisoners. Throughout the night, indirect negotiations unfolded to extend the truce, the Palestinian militant group said in a statement on Friday. Hamas also offered to transfer the Bibas family bodies and release their father for their burial, along with 2 Zionist detainees, it added. Israeli authorities remained unresponsive, it said. The Israeli Prime Minister's office, meanwhile, told the AFP Israel will not address propaganda-based reports coming from Hamas. As of Thursday, reports of the deaths of the 3 Bibas family members remain unconfirmed, according to the army spokesman Daniel Hagari. The army has previously said Hamas is wholly responsible for the security of all hostages, that we are literally bombing. We're bombing the hostages. The father did survive, yes. Government spokesman Aylin Levy, because the father was separated from the mother and the children. Obviously, you can't separate the children from the mother, but the father was separated. Government spokesman Aylin Levy, former government spokesman, on Friday blamed Hamas for the collapse of the truce, accusing it of having failed to provide a list of more hostages for release. He said Hamas was still holding 137 hostages taken on October 7, including the Bibas family. The family were among the roughly 240 hostages dragged back to Gaza after militants streamed into Israel in an attack that left 1,200 people dead, most of them civilians, according to Israeli officials. Israel's ensuing war, and this was literally in December of 2023, has killed more than 15,000 people, also mostly civilians, according to Hamas-run government in Gaza. These are the reasons as to why I am critical of the Israeli government's propaganda on this, and I am suspicious because I recognize Israel's motivations. I also recognize that Israel has, time and time again, lied about how hostages have been killed. You are lying. You can't. Wait, what? Yeah. I wonder if young herpes has a response to any of this shit. Probably not. It's really hard to learn the fucking truth and to question authority. I know. I get it. It's much easier for you to look at these ongoing atrocities and basically talk about it from the perspective of drama between content creators. Okay? They're probably being sarcastic. No, young herpes was not being sarcastic. He was just saying some dumb shit. He probably got banned. Yeah, Lake McGroove banned them. Here, we'll unban them and we'll hear what he has to say now. I think I've had a fairly moderate perspective, which is why it's also funny when people yell at me about this shit. Okay? We welcome young herpes back into the community with open arms, with hopes that he will maybe be a little bit more reasonable about it. It's a great moment for young herpes to learn something instead of just regurgitating falsehoods. Breaking, far-right extremist and notorious racist Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich to meet with the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent next Wednesday in Washington. The meeting is expected to focus on economic cooperation in Israeli settlements. We're strengthening the ties, the working relations, said Smotrich's spokesperson, Eitan Fold. A key member of Prime Minister Netanyahu's coalition, Smotrich is a vocal proponent of apartheid in Israel and Palestine. He advocates for the expulsion of Palestinians from their homeland and the reoccupation of Gaza, supporting what he calls voluntary migration of Palestinians. He's Mr. AFD. As minister in charge of civilian affairs in the West Bank, he oversees policies that further entrench Israel's illegal occupation while pushing for the full annexation of the West Bank and the removal of all Palestinians. His rhetoric and actions fuel settler violence and further erode any chances of peace. This meeting marks a shift as Biden kept Smotrich and far-right extremists at an arm's length. It follows Trump's decision on his first day in office to lift sanctions on violent Israeli settlers accused of crimes against Palestinians. Here are some of his choice quotes. We will erase their smile again and replace it with with cries of grief. Gaza is destroyed and broken, uninhabitable, and it will remain so. Do not be impressed by the forces' cries of joy of our enemies. This is an animalistic society which sanctifies death and dances on the ruins of its life. Very soon, we will erase their smile and replace it with cries of grief and the wails of those who were left with nothing. Fantastic stuff. They're Nazis, okay? That's it. It's that simple. When there is no information, however, in Western news about the ways in which Israel's depraved government behaves identically to the fucking Nazi government of the past, okay? A lot of people are misinformed by it. And in that misinformation, if someone presents themselves as pro-Palestinian, but then does unrestricted pro-Israel propaganda, by not necessarily saying like what Israel is doing is super right, but instead by simply attacking. All of his commentary focuses on naysayers of Israel, criticizers of Israel, by attacking them and saying they're all terrorists, you know? their fucking mindless drones, the fan base will come in here and also push this ridiculous bullshit. Anyway, Andrew Cuomo seen as possible White House candidate by some Democrats is great stuff. Fantastic. And the newly installed FBI director, Kash Patel, has proposed enhancing the FBI's ranks with the help from United Fighting Championship, UFC, the martial arts entertainment giant whose wealthy CEO Dana White helped boost President Trump's election. Also fantastic. We'll get to Andrew Tate in a second. We got the Epstein files as well. Andrew Tate obviously is frustrating to some. Okay.
To the latest on the Trump.
Jesus, that's loud. Okay. Trump administration directs agencies to make plans for mass layoffs. I saw a Substack post where a fan asserted that mods of pro-Palestine subs are secretly jihadists. Yeah, I mean, that's just... That right there is just straightforward Islamophobic nonsense, okay? That's it. Even just simply saying like, oh, you're a terrorist, like you're pro-Palestine, you're a terrorist, and here are the reasons why. That right there is no different than what like ultra-Zionists say either. You know, maybe you're not taking the extra mile. Maybe you're not taking the initiative. Maybe you're not brave enough to openly say how you really feel, how you truly feel. It's like when Republicans call black people thugs, okay? Rather than the N-word. Everybody understands exactly what it is, okay? Virtually everyone with 3 active brain cells knows exactly what's going on. So why the fuck do you not recognize it if you fancy yourself to be a progressive, if you fancy yourself to being to being an active member of a otherwise progressive pro-Palestinian community? It is psychotic. That's all this is. The utilization of the American terror watch list for your commentary is fucking idiotic, okay?